There you go. You are watching and listening to a very special edition of Open Bar. I'm Mike Morales here in Southern California. I've got a special guest. That lady out there is.
Heidi Anderson, also La Tequila Mamacita on social media, and I am in Spring Hill, Tennessee.
Wow,
Yeah.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
Uh, I, the reason we have Heidi on is because we actually, you and I have this weird 2 year relationship. I think it's
We
been.
go way back, even more than 2 years,
Is it longer than 2 years?
like 2017.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, we're on all the social media, and I this young lady reaches out to me on LinkedIn and lets me know about a particular brand, which I won't bring up because it's one of our favorites. Actually, the person who makes this brand is a Meli Barajas,
Hmm.
and we wrote about her. We actually interviewed her long before she got all that press in the New York Times and all that. And and I wasn't aware of this new brand from this young lady who was repping it at the time in Tennessee. She says, "Have you?" I don't know how did that come about? I mean, how did you find out about us? Is what I
You
want to.
know, Mike, I think it was on LinkedIn. I just saw you and I saw Tequila Aficionado. And then I started kind of looking at like, who is this Mike Morales? And I was watching all of the YouTube reviews and interviews that you were doing. And so I just thought, just because I didn't know any better, I was new in the industry, so I had no fear. I was just reaching out to everyone. And I reached out to you and I said, hey, I'm with this brand. How can we get you to review it? And you responded back to me, and that's how it all started. You told me what I needed to do, and then I talked to the owners of the brand, and that's how that happened.
Yeah, they've been really great advertisers, and of course the juice was spectacular.
Right.
It's Meli Barajas. That if you're not familiar with Meli, she's responsible for having one of the probably the only female run and female owned distilleries.
Hmm.
I mean, there are other women who own their distilleries as well, but very few. There's like a handful. But
Yeah.
she's really at the forefront of that, and an amazing lady. In fact, if you're not familiar with her, we have her in our Babes to Boss Ladies book, where you were actually one of the first people to purchase the book and read it. That
Oh,
was
yeah.
nice.
Yeah, I was so excited about that. And like Melly, she's one of my heroes, and I'll talk about it a little bit later. But I did get the opportunity to meet her via Skype, and
Oh,
I
good.
just, when I started researching who made the brand that I worked for and reading about her and just doing my own research, I was just amazed, at what she had done and what she had accomplished and how long ago she had started and the obstacles. So I was just very attracted, like, to her persistence and her tenacity and just like willing to not take no for an answer and go for it anyway. So I love her. She's great.
Yeah. We were made known about her even a few years back. Prior to that, what had happened was that we had another lady who was repping a brand and said, I've been after her for a long time to get samples from her. And she said, well, who you should also interview is Meli Barajas. And I said, Meli makes your brand? And that's when I found out about her.
Hmm.
And then it's like, so I checked the gnome list and saw, there's only a handful of tequilas coming out of there, and each one of those is just stellar.
Hmm.
So, when you reached out to us, I was excited. It's like, send it along, let's do it. And it's been a nice little, kind of a I don't know, under the radar relationship between you and me. So,
Yeah.
and so now, I've watched you progress in this tequila career of yours, but that's not exactly where you come from, because you said you were new in the
Hmm.
industry. What were you doing prior to repping a brand? I mean, you were doing tastings, and that's a
Yeah.
that's a tough road to hoe, because it's like one liquor store after another. I mean, literally,
Yes.
it's one sip at a time, you pass the lips, one person at a time. So, what
Yeah.
were you doing prior to that?
Well, prior to that, I was a professional singer. I would sing and I played in a band and we opened for people. I sang the national anthem at baseball games, um, NASCAR. I did all that kind of stuff. I wanted to be a singer and a writer. And I also have always been a self employed hairstylist. So I've always owned my own business. So I moved to Nashville in 2005 to pursue singing and songwriting. That's what brought me here from Napa, California, where my family is.
Oh,
To,
you're from here. You're from California
I'm
because
from
that's where I
California.
am.
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
kidding. Central
yeah.
California. Do
Hmm.
you have like a so do you have you say you're from Napa?
Yes.
Uh, do you have a wine background then?
A little bit. I mean, when you grow up around it, you kind of take it for granted, and it's just a very casual thing, wine. It's not like when you come here and people think, oh, Napa Valley or oh, Temecula, California. It's just like when you're around it, you're around it. Kind of like the people here are used to all the music and the celebrities. It's no big deal. It doesn't phase them. But I do have my oldest sister and her husband. They own vineyards in Yountville that they lease out to different winemakers, and then they also do their own little private batch of wine. It's just for family and friends. They don't sell it. So I've kind of helped with that. Sometimes everything was done by hand, very old school. I think now they've actually partnered with a larger winery that's right across the road from them that makes their wine for them. But in the beginning, it was all by hand, like crushing it with, the manual crusher and bottling it ourselves, and it was really cool.
You didn't
So
do
I
any you didn't do any of the foot stomping and stuff like that we saw Lucy do, right? Or you know what my
no.
favorite scene in have you ever seen the movie A
Oh,
Walk in the Clouds?
yes.
Uh, that stuff doesn't happen anymore, right? I mean, it's just not,
Not really. I mean, a lot of that was some of that was real, some of it was like not so much. But it's funny you bring up that episode of Lucy because I just watched the movie. I think it was called Being Ricardo or
being the Ricardos. Yeah, I
yeah,
haven't seen it yet. I need to watch it.
and they one of the parts of the movie was when she did that scene, and it was
Oh,
really cool.
uh, it was hysterical. There's another one that one's still a favorite. You'll see it in memes where she's eating it, she's boxing the chocolates, and
Oh,
the conveyor belt's too fast, so she winds up eating all of it.
I
Uh,
love that.
Gosh,
It's so great. But yeah, so Northern California, I came here, kind of pursued songwriting for a bit. And then after about a year, I realized that maybe my heart wasn't in it as much as a lot of the other people, my circle, friends of songwriters, and people really trying to, make a living of it and being willing to sacrifice whatever it took to do music. Like they didn't care if, they might not have food to eat the next day or where they lived or if they had to live with other people. As where I was at a stage in my life where I wanted stability, I wanted a house, we had a mortgage, and I had to work, so by the time, and then I lived like 35 minutes south of Nashville, which is where everything's
wow.
happening, people are getting together to write. So by the time I got home, I was just like burnt out, or at the end of a long day of doing hair, all I wanted to do was like go home to my farm and just chill. So after that, I just kind of kept, I would sing, I would do demos, I would maybe do live performances at writers' rounds, um, or, sing for other writers who would say, hey, can you come do this writers round with me for this song that you did the vocal on in the studio? And I'd say, sure. So I did that. But really, I haven't been doing that for a long, long time. Mostly what I've been doing is hair. But in 2017, I decided to take a break from hair. Like I just needed a break. So I was just looking for something to do. I didn't give it up totally. I still kept a handful of clients, but I just stumbled across this opportunity to be a sales rep for a tequila brand that was headquartered out of Nashville. And that intrigued me because I thought, wait, tequila's made in Mexico. So I found out about it like, no, they weren't saying it was made in Tennessee. It's made in Mexico, but headquartered here. And I had never really done sales, like where I go somewhere and try to sell something. But I tasted the tequilas. I met with the owners. I tasted the tequilas and was just so impressed. Not that I had a lot of experience with the tequila at the time, but I knew what tasted good and what didn't taste good. So I was like, yeah, what do I have to do? And literally the first day, my boss said, I want you to take this box. I didn't even have a bag like the reps, use the bags.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
had a cardboard box. And he goes, and I want you to go to this place. It's this big Mexican tequila, very trendy place in Nashville. And I want you to sit down at the bar and just start talking to the bartenders and ask them if they like tequila and ask them if they want to try this. And I was like, okay. So he goes, go around 2 o'clock because the crowd will be, there'll be more places to park. So I went, I sat down. It was packed. There was no place to park. I was lucky I found a spot. I had to walk like 2 blocks with the box of
Oh my
tequila.
God.
Yeah. And so I get there, I sit down, there's one seat at the bar, and I start talking to him. And the next thing I know, it's a party, and there's the bartenders are sampling tequila, the manager's coming over. And after that, I got in my car and I texted my boss and I go, this is so awesome. I'm in. I go, tell me where to go next. So I was like, this is really great. So from that point on, I just really started learning more about tequila and the history and the different types and how it's made, and so that I knew what I was talking about when I went in and sold it to people, because a lot of them had questions that had I not done that research I wouldn't have known. So that's that's how it all got started.
Do you find that I've said this for a long time because I having watched the industry, I can see where the hotbeds, the little hot pockets throughout the United States, and I
Hmm.
know that Atlanta is really hot for agave spirits now, not just tequila, and they have been for a while. But when Tennessee is not an area that I would consider a hotbed, but it's getting there. I mean, they've
It
had
is.
you. I mean, you went to a very popular restaurant, and I know
Hmm.
that the Carolinas are getting there as well. I mean, it seems more prevalent now, and
Yeah.
but do you find that well, you're not repping anybody anymore at this point because it
No.
looked like you're
No.
quite well in your bar there. Uh,
Well, what happened, actually, it's funny that you say that. So, what happened when I left that brand, I left because when I started with them, we were small. We did everything in house, we self distributed. So, I worked for the brand, but I worked for the distributor too. So, I would go in and make the sales, and then we would actually deliver. Well, we had a delivery guy, but he would deliver the tequila. So, when they decided, they grew and they sold the distribution, and I felt like I really don't know what my position here is going to be anymore. And it wasn't really made clear. That's when I had an opportunity to go work for another small distributor that was mostly wine, and they had no spirits. And by that time, I had become very familiar with Meli Barajas Cardenas and her brands. And I had already been ordering Viquera online, which I don't even know if that's still being made. But I told them,
the distributor, the importer is here in Southern California, uh,
yes.
from what I understand. Well, I know that for a fact.
Yeah,
I
I know
think,
the owners.
okay, yeah.
Yes,
Oh, you
brother
do?
and yeah,
Yes, brother and sister. Yeah.
yeah. So they were the one of the owners was the one I got a hold of to find out how I could get Viquera because it wasn't available here.
Hmm.
And so he sent me to the website where I could order it online. So I had been ordering it. I loved it. I loved the story behind it. So I talked to my new boss about it and I said, "How do you feel about bringing on a tequila?" And she goes, "Oh, well, what do you have in mind?" So, long story short, we did a tasting with all of these people that know tequila and they loved it. And we brought it in, and it was very, very successful. And then about 6 months later, COVID happened.
Oh my God. And then of course the world stopped, except for drinking online, which is what we've always done anyway. But uh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
So yeah. So no more face to face for you, right?
No more face to face. So I just decided, you know what? I'm just going to go back to hair full time. I'm not going to, I can't do tastings. I can't do events. Like, what am I going to do? So I resigned and I just went back to doing hair, but I really miss tequila. So then I kind of threw myself into Instagram, and in the last, like, couple of years have met some really amazing people that have inspired me. And so that's what I do now is I just talk about different brands that I get an opportunity to sample and review, and I make cocktails. And through that, I was doing a cocktail video one time just featuring um, some naturally flavored mixers. And I just happened to, I had the Leyenda de Mexico tequilas here.
Oh yes, another
I,
Melly Barajas. You're one of her
yeah,
biggest fans, besides us.
yes, I am. I have them all. So even this beautiful bottle. So
Nice.
so I just thought, what tequila should I use for this drink? So I happened to use the Leyenda de Mexico Blanco, and I just tagged Leyenda de Mexico, and then I got a message from Melly, and I
Ooh.
was like, is this a joke? You know, and I double checked. I checked it over and over just to make sure it was really them responding to me. And basically, she contracted me, and now I do these little cocktail videos for her once a month that feature her tequila. So I had
Cool.
an opportunity to meet her via Skype and talk to her, and she's just a very incredible, humble person, very kind.
Yeah, I've had a chance to speak to her on the phone a few years back, but that was a three-way conversation. But and I have to catch up with her because I know that she's been wanting me to reach out to her, and I've just
Yes.
I've not had that chance yet. But
Mhm.
who knows? Maybe after we get off here,
Yeah.
I'll buzz her on WhatsApp or something.
Give her a
Um,
jingle.
so okay, so now you're. I've watched you on your social media. You gotta watch the follow her if you're not familiar with her and your cohorts. You are part of the. I don't know how this happened. You may have to explain this to me because I'm fascinated because I don't know the history of this because in the last between when I moved to Texas and just trying to get Tequila Aficionado really to fly, by the time we looked up, you know, Instagram had been. There's a lot of people that were networking together. So
Mhm.
how did you wind up? Were you networked together with somebody else, or did they reach out to you? Did you reach out to them? How did that work? Because you're part of the techie ladies, correct? Is that
Yes. Uh-huh. We were just all Instagram friends and would comment on each other's posts and, try to lift each other up and share each other's posts. And I remember seeing one of Muriel's, she is La Tiquelana on Instagram. I saw one of her posts and I thought, is this young lady? Like, she looks so young. She almost doesn't even look old enough to drink. She looks that young, but she is. She just has really good genes. And I thought, she knows what she's talking about. Like, and so I kept reposting her things and, putting the little arrow, follow La Tiquelana. And then one day she messaged Marissa and I. Marissa's with Tequila Encyclopedia, and she said, "Hey, somebody told me that I should do an Instagram live, but I don't really want to do one by myself. Will you guys do it with me?" And we were like, "Sure." I said, "I don't think I've ever done one either. And I don't know if Marissa had." So we set it up and we just announced that we were going to do this kind of freestyle live thing. And just really, it was just supposed to be one time. And there was someone else that we wanted to get involved, but there were a few others, but they just weren't available because of their schedules. And so we did the show and it was really great. We had a lot of people jump on the live. And then so I messaged them after the show and I said, I go, this was really fun. And I said, I didn't think I would like doing lives, but I feel like we all like doing it and we all have a chemistry. What do you think about making this a regular thing and just like bringing on a guest? And so that's how it happened. And then Marissa is the one that came up. We were trying to figure out names and she came up with the Techie Ladies. So
so?
that's
There you
how it
are.
happened.
Yeah. So now you guys go on like what every Tuesday?
Every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern time. And so what we try to do is the first, second, and third Tuesday, we'll interview either a brand owner or a master distiller or an influencer, an educator. And then the last Tuesday is our freestyle, where we just bring on different people. But sometimes we get brand owners and master distillers that jump on the freestyles. That's really cool because then we book them for a show after that.
Ah, well, who does the booking? You?
We all book it. We just like we'll all send each other messages, and we have like a spreadsheet that Marissa made, and it's got all the dates that we're booked. I think right now we're booked through February and a little bit of March, but we could kind of see who's on what Tuesday, um, and we just communicate and say, hey, this person, wants to be on the show. I'm going to book them for this date. Is it okay? And that's how we do it.
Well, I
We
know
would
that.
love to have you on the show, Mike.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I would love to be on it if I can.
Yes.
If I know ahead of time, I can schedule it now because
Yeah.
I know that our managing partner Lisa Peach, who has
Mhm.
been with us for almost like 9 years now,
Mhm.
is a big fan of you guys, and
Aw.
and the other thing too is there's a series of guys who are you guys are kind of all networked with,
Yes.
and what happens with Tequila Aficionado is that there's a it's just Lisa and myself
Mhm.
and of course our tasters, but this is all we do, and so we're doing just about everything, and finally we're getting to the point where I'm walking away and just I started lurking because that's what I do now on social media. It's just you get to the point where I remember when Twitter was a big deal and people were saying that they were drinking they were swallowing the worm in tequila, and then you jump and go, there's no worm in tequila, and then it would
Yeah.
flip you. It's like you're telling them, oh no, Santa Claus doesn't isn't real. There's no such thing as leprechauns. And,
Right.
and so after that, I learned my lesson. I said, if they don't want to be corrected, then there's no sense in me even trying. I'm just going to lurk. And
Right.
so that's kind of what my habit's been. But um, I kind of always have been the face of Tequila Aficionado. So now
Yes.
getting to the point where I'm doing a little bit more of these lives and just getting a feel for the new crop of influencers because we've been at it for 22 years, and there are some I think and I've told this I think for those of you who don't know, you're also one of our students at the Consumer Catador course, and of course
Yes.
that's a self-paced, and so you and I communicated on email a couple of times, and I may have mentioned this to you, but there's a lot of charlatans in this business. There's a lot of people that you got to start somewhere. I get that,
Right.
but that's how misinformation gets disseminated, and
Yes.
and so that's why lurking works for me because I get to watch and see what everybody else's style is,
Yeah.
and I like you guys. I guess there's the Agata Squad is what they're called on Instagram. You might want to run the hashtag and find it, folks, if you're watching us, because
Yes.
there's some really credible people,
Yes.
thoughtful, young, even younger than millennials at this point,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
I start thinking about that because liquor companies know that there's a new drinking generation every 10 years. They already have numbers. They're marketing people. They pay for those studies. And they already know how many millions of new drinkers are coming on board. They're coming online every year. So they try to find lines at what attracts these younger drinkers, right?
Right.
And I like your dynamic with Marissa and Marielle because it's you're obviously kind of like their den mother, and these two are just back and forth and back and forth. And sometimes I just watch you and you just but I like how you pick and choose your battles, and then you go in and you go, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And so I like that. It's very similar for me when I do tastings with all my other tasters. Is they're all different generations, and some of them. I know for me,
Hmm.
I every time I do a tasting with these guys, I learn something new from them because I don't know everything. I've been at it for 22 years and I still don't know everything. And
Right.
when and you fall into that pit where you think you know what you're talking about and you don't. Uh,
Yeah.
we
I
didn't
know.
we didn't know about the diffuser, that was going on between 2001 and 2010. We had no idea what that was,
Right.
until somebody confesses, and then you reverse engineer and you find out that, oh, it's a great big ass shortcut.
Mm-hmm. There's,
Now,
I mean, there's a lot going on that we don't know about, and I feel like every day I learn something new. Like when I go on Instagram and read a post or listen to one of your podcasts or watch a video, like I'm always learning. And I mean, I don't know that I'll ever know everything, and so what I try to do is, like you say, you lurk. Like I just kind of throw information at people and hope it sticks, and I know that I mean, some people are going to listen and some people aren't, and I've been corrected on social media before, and I just, take it as, oh, like if somebody corrects me, first the Latina in me comes out and I get offended, like, don't do that to me, like on my page, private message me, don't do it in my comments. But
yeah,
then I go and I research it, and I was doing, I think, a review once on, I think it was racia, and I think I called it agave that it was made from because I just didn't know. And so somebody commented on my post, like, it's actually not, it's called this. And so I messaged them and I said, hey, I go, thank you for the information, but in the future, just like DM me. And he was like, yeah, you're right, I shouldn't have done that. But you know what? But I'm glad he told me, because I didn't know, I wouldn't have known because I hadn't
well,
really
it, it,
researched.
it is an agave.
But it's a different name, right?
Yes. Well, what
Yes.
happens is that the agave is a generalized name, but
Mm-hmm.
espadin is an agave.
Yeah.
Blue, Blue Weber tequilana is an agave. So
Yeah.
agave kind of encompasses all those plants, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, I I wrote a book on it. So it's there. It's agave spirits around the world. It
Okay, I'm gonna get that book.
Yeah. I loved doing it because there was so much research of stuff that I didn't even know was going on. I
Right.
mean, right now the industry, you and I share a concern for the industry.
Okay.
Um, there's a couple of big concerns. We talked. We've not messaged each other, but there's certain things that I worry about that I know you guys worry about as well.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those is the overproduction of tequila.
Yes.
Everybody amazes at these marketing numbers. There was so many liters of tequila produced last year. You can get all those numbers on the CRT. They're all there. They don't hide it.
Mm-hmm.
They break it down even by month. Month to month to month, how much they are making and exporting. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
if you know where to look and you know how to find it, it's there. In fact, that's part of what I teach in the Consumer Catador course. You can actually do it yourself. You don't have to even speak Spanish. But regardless, those numbers, everybody takes these numbers like a big feather in the cap. Oh wow, yay team!
Yeah.
And people like you and me and the techie ladies and all the new crop of influencers are going.
Mm-hmm.
That's not something to be proud of
Yeah.
because you know generally
Yeah.
speaking, a blue agave takes 5, 7, 8 years to grow properly.
Mm-hmm.
Are they letting them grow like that anymore? No.
No.
Only a handful of them are even letting the quiotes sprout so they
Mm-hmm.
can see bats, right?
And birds and bees. Yeah.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
the bat friendly program.
Right.
And we need to see more of that because um, my fear, and I expressed that in the Agave Spirits Around the World book, is that the industry is going to eat itself. It's going to implode, and many
Mm-hmm.
of the older dogs who have been around for a while, who had their own brands and still do, and um, I've they're more my contemporaries. They all share the same concern
Yes.
that there's only going to be a handful of really great. I mean, how many times can we talk about Ocho?
Yeah.
How many times can we talk about Tapatio and Meli?
El
They
Tesoro. Yeah.
got it. But what about, there are a lot of other brands out there, and some of them
Mm-hmm.
are healthy, and some of them are not. And I'm afraid that they're going to implode. They're going to eat itself because the liquor industry eats itself anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It always has. But I think the larger concern we have to watch now is Australia, and,
Right.
they're doing it right. They're doing it scientifically. They have the weather to do it. They have the property to do it, and they actually hired away the gentleman Trent Frazier,
Oh,
who was involved with Volcán de mi Tierra.
okay.
He was working for Louis Vuitton, that owned the brand. He now works for I forget what the name of the company is. It's the biggest distiller in Australia. They lured him away, and he is spearheading that Australian agave spirit.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot about Australian agave spirits. A lot.
I discuss it in the book. It's a
Yeah.
lot of the groundwork is in the book, and I'm excited because I have had a blue agave spirit from New Zealand that's just
Hmm.
it's pristine. I
Wow.
have had a mezcal that came to us from yeah, I think no, it was South Africa, and
Hmm.
and it's made with a agave americana. And then I have had another one from Australia, but they're making it like a mezcal, and the wood that they're using is eucalyptus.
Oh,
And
wow.
so the final result is like a minty, like
Yeah.
I want to say vapor rub, but it's not like that. It's very gentle, and it's like, oh my God. And you can't place it unless you know it's eucalyptus. You don't know what it is because it's like mint, but it's not.
Wow.
And all these individuals, small batch, they're all doing their style as an homage to Mexico, but with a flavor all their own, and it's much wider than just the tequila. So that, to me, I think the next big trend will
Hmm.
be agave spirits, blue agave spirits from Australia. Uh,
Wow, that's interesting.
I'm interested. I'm interested to find out. I'm pretty sure we're on the short list to get samples when they're available. But they're growing hectares and hectares of blue agave
Great.
scientifically. So it's exciting to see where that's going
Yeah.
because on the other hand, you know, I'm very much afraid that
Yeah.
they need to pull the reins on this growth. It's not, it isn't necessary. I think Marissa actually said something the other day. She goes, "This will probably be the year that 2022 will be the year that the tequila outsells vodka."
Oh,
And I
yeah.
I said to her directly, or on a DM, I said, "God, I hope not. I hope not."
Yeah. Because
Because
it'll be a lot of crappy tequila. But
yeah,
I'm so excited to hear about the thing with Australia. I know there is a tradition and a cultural part of tequila, being made in Mexico in a certain region, just like champagne. It's made in a certain region. But I mean, if you have the soil and the climate to grow the agave and produce a good product, then why not? Here we can't call it champagne, it's sparkling,
exactly.
wine, but it's still good.
Yeah, it's still great.
Yeah.
When I lived in New Mexico, they're actually some of the oldest grapevines that were brought over by the Spaniards are in New Mexico, and there's a big tradition of wine making, and they make a sparkling wine, which I have
Hmm.
champagne. It's just outstanding.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, everybody in wine does it. I mean, every state has its own winery. Texas did. Texas
Yeah.
they got big wine country out there. I
Even
had
Tennessee.
yeah, yeah. So and it doesn't surprise me that you had a palate already for when you said you didn't have a whole lot of experience with tequila, but
Hmm.
you had that palate for wine already, because tequila, even in its denomination of origin, has borrowed benefits from
Hmm.
Italian wine, French wine, the spirits industry. That's how the tequila industry built itself, and so it doesn't surprise me that you at least knew what you liked,
Yeah.
and now
I knew a little bit and I'm working on it. I'm working on my palate because I tend to like, and I've told everybody this, I like sweet
Yes, I was
and
going to
not
that.
not syrupy sweet. Like there are some tequilas that I've tasted, and I won't name any names, but that there's obviously manipulation happening with the juice because you can smell it, you can taste it, and then there's this like weird aftertaste. But that being said, some of the additives that they're using now, they're so concentrated and they're so advanced
Hmm.
that they're getting harder to detect. And usually the way that I could tell is because I start to get a headache. I don't feel good.
Oh yeah, that's a telltale sign. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you when you get your headache? Do you normally get those with añejos, with the aged spirits, or do you get those with the unaged?
Sometimes with unaged too. And so I researched that and I know, what I've been hearing is that the blancos don't have additives in them, but I'm thinking that's not necessarily true. They may not have the color in there, but they can still have a sweetener and glycerin in there to give it that smoother feel. But even like the little, some people say pour it in a pan and if it burns and it leaves a residue, or if you rub it in your hands, I used to do the hand rubbing thing, but even now they've gotten so advanced with the additives that rubbing it in your hands is doesn't even work anymore.
Yeah,
It's not sticky.
yeah, it's not sticky. It used to be.
Hmm.
If it was sticky, you'd know.
Yeah.
Uh, I, I I don't know if you've read my article on my hack on that. Just if you want to know for sure, just don't wash your glass, and then
Oh yeah.
come back to it in the morning. And the reason I say that, and I say it in the article, in fact, it's in the magazine. I believe we put it in the December or January issue. I'm not sure. I think
Hmm.
it's January. But anyway, what happens is, these additives are produced by major companies that have influenced everything from the color and smell of our blueberry pop tarts to your candles. You know what seafoam green is supposed to smell and look like. Okay, and,
Right.
and these are global international companies that have, and uh, one of the biggest clients of some of these companies is the tequila industry.
Hmm.
There's one that I know offhand that has an office in Mexico City, and that's what their job is. And
Yeah.
these they're now so highly concentrated. But the thing is, these are made by scientists, and when they make a sample, they put it on a glass slide.
Hmm.
So the best bet is to just don't wash your glassware. Come back to it the next day, and if it still smells like there's something in it and you're not sure, um, maybe you should stop drinking that brand.
That's a good idea. I will tell you, I had the opportunity to be part of a blind tasting panel for Tequila Match. Very humbling experience.
Mm.
I have so much to learn. And, we were told now, we just want you to know, like, these are all very good tequilas. Grover kind of fooled us, so make sure not to rate them low. So I had it in my head, like, okay, they're all good. Probably none of these have additives, So I did my little going back and forth to taste them. I was kind of in and out of these sinus and throat things that I've been having, but still, I thought I rated them pretty good. And when I got the results, I was like, wow, like I really have a lot to learn. And I'll tell you that one, I won't say what it was, but it did have additives in it, and I didn't rate it low. So, yeah.
You fall into that. You fall into what the general public. I mean, it's
Yeah.
mainstream. They know that. Remember, I told you these
Yeah.
distributors and these companies. They know.
Yeah.
Uh, that they can. That they can attract more flies with honey. I guess. If
Right.
it's the case. But the sad part is, and I think you share this concern as well, is that the up and coming drinkers are going to believe that what they're drinking, this stuff, is really what
Yes.
tequila is supposed to taste like, and it's not.
Yeah, that's my issue. Is I'm not It's not my place to tell somebody what to drink and what not to drink. That would be like me saying, if you don't only eat organic food, and non-GMO food, then I don't want to go out to dinner with you. You know, that would be, that's just, it should be everybody's personal choice. But I also feel that it's my right, just like when I go to buy something at the store, at the grocery store, to know what is in what I'm drinking. So if you're going to put that 1% of additives in there, I feel like it should be on the bottle that it's in there. Because number one, it's going to save me a headache and feeling sick, and it's going to save me money, And then the people that don't care, they'll just get those tequilas, I guess. I don't know. But, that's just my personal preference, is that I try to support the brands that still make tequila authentically and traditionally and don't use additives. Do I have some in here that might have additives? Maybe, because I'm still learning, but I'm not going to learn unless I keep tasting tequilas.
Exactly. And
That's
that's,
right.
yeah, I tell that to everybody that I run across. I say, give yourself a library. Because I
Mm-hmm.
mean, look at, I can see your library behind you. You say you can tell a lot by the of a person by the books on their shelf. It's the same thing. You can tell a lot about you guys, you and your husband, by the liquor on your shelves.
Yeah.
And so I tell people it's always a good idea if you're going to be an educator, if you're or even just a connoisseur, you're just going to be a collector.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine, but always have a few bottles of diffuser made tequilas handy, so you
Yeah.
can you can either get rid of them to your friends who don't care, or use them as reference. And
Right.
I have several. I keep them. We did some tastings already for this year of a couple that have.
Mm-hmm.
And the sad part is they have wonderful backstories. Maybe they're owned by a chef who
Mm-hmm.
who named her tequila after her grandmother, who was known as the most beautiful woman in the world. Whatever the story that they, you know, but
Right.
the story, the marketing doesn't match the juice. The juice was horrendous,
Yeah.
and it's sad because maybe that person had all the good intentions,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm surprised about this particular brand because it is owned by a chef. I mean, she should know better. But regardless,
Yeah.
if you can fool, I mean, we were I think Marissa. We're going to talk about Marissa's favorite bashing is
Oh yeah.
yeah.
818.
Well, no, not even 818's not bad. Okay, I
Uh-huh.
haven't had the new juice. I had the
Uh-huh.
old juice from La Cofradia.
Oh,
Um, it, that's a whole other animal. Uh,
okay.
no, this is the Casa Dragones bashing. That's her
Oh
second.
yeah.
I think it's her first
Yeah.
favorite. You know, when it was introduced to the world, it was a great pairing tequila. You got all these chefs, and you got Martha Stewart, and you got Oprah. And
Mm-hmm.
Oprah can't be wrong, right?
Yeah.
Martha Stewart, yeah, she's an ex-con, but she's not wrong. But she knows how to cook, right? Well, come to find out, years later, now we understand that diffuser tequila
Mm-hmm.
allows itself to be aged, colored, flavored. If you got a good barrel, it's gonna taste just like whatever barrel you put it in, and it's great for food pairing because
Mm-hmm.
it has
Right.
no character. So if you could fool these top end chefs, I mean they really threw money at these guys, to all these
Right.
chefs that endorsed it. Um, who's to say that that you can fool a lot of people all the time?
You can, and it's all about trying to appeal to the American market. And as Americans, we like things smooth and we like things sweet for the most part,
Yes,
a majority of the people. And I think that's what a lot of the distilleries are catering to, you
but
know?
I think, but would you agree with me that the public is changing?
Oh, yeah. I think the public is changing. I think people are getting a lot more educated and savvy about what they put in their bodies. So they're researching more. But I mean, I every time I'm in a liquor store in the tequila aisle and I see people and I'll, kind of say, "Excuse me, can I help you?" And I help them choose. And I always tell them about Tequila Match, and they've never heard of it, even the ones that like know a little bit about tequila. So I think the more we spread the word about, apps like that, spread the word about you, spread the word about like all the people that are out there to educate us about tequila, the more educated people will start to be. But I think for the most part, if you're talking about the masses, people just don't know. I compare it to like I said, people that are into organic lifestyle. It's a small number of people. We all know that there's bad stuff in food, but
Well, it's
we
not. It's not such a small market anymore.
know.
Organic food, and even kosher food. Kosher is a $1 billion industry, and it's because
Right.
it's not just Jewish people. It's you know even like you said, it's people who are concerned about what they put in their
Mhm.
body, and
Mhm.
if it's good enough for God, it's good enough for me. So
Yeah. So there are people paying attention, and I think that those numbers will grow.
yeah.
So all we can do is just like try to share information with people. Some will listen, some won't, and maybe eventually they will.
Well, yeah, that's always the hope, and
Uh-huh.
that's I guess that's why I'm doing more of the networking and watching you guys come along, because um, because there aren't that many that started with us. I mean, we were it.
Mhm.
We started.
Mhm.
I tell people we grew up with the internet, because
Mhm.
when we started, we were dial up. It was just me and
Right.
Alex, and and now it's we're global. Now we're a global company. We get
Right.
hits Australia and Taiwan and countries I didn't even know existed that were interested, in tequila.
Yeah.
And the industry should be proud of that too. I'm not taking anything away from them. I'm just
Mhm.
saying pull the reins on it because I'm just 5 years old. A 5-year-old plant, a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, they don't have that character. So
Mhm.
the younger the plant, the less character it has, the more additives you got to use to make it taste like what it's supposed to taste like. Why
Exactly.
bother?
And unfortunately, a lot of people think just because the bottle says that it's 100% agave, that that's all it is. So it's not just the diffuser tequilas that have additives in there. They have to have it in there because
Yeah.
diffused tequila by itself would be terrible. But it's the 100% agave tequilas that are maybe harvested a little too young, and they have to put stuff in there to make it taste decent. So that's the deceiving part that I'm not a fan of, is like the misleading people.
What I've found is that, and you touched on this just a few minutes ago. You said that the American public likes things sweet and smooth.
Hmm.
And the thing is, when we came up with the course, when Lisa and I came up with the Catador course, I wanted to stay away from those descriptors because David
Hmm.
Suro said this to me years and years ago. David Suro, who has Siembra Azul and Siembra Valles,
Hmm.
he's done so much for the industry to bring more craft tequilas out there. He said to me years ago, he said there are two words that shouldn't be in the same sentence, and that's smooth and tequila. And so
Yeah.
when it comes, and the reason people say it is because, as you said, they don't have the descriptors.
Right.
I love when I do the teachings because when I do tastings and teachings and instruction, when people come up with their own descriptors, because that makes it more valid for them. They own it.
Yeah.
And it when you read some of these tasting notes, like wine tasting notes, are notorious for being snobbish. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It tastes like it tastes like caviar farmed in in Siberia. I don't know. So I remember one time I conducted a tasting. I was living in Albuquerque, and it was at my home, and we were doing tastings of a full flight of several brands. And one of these, we came to añejos, and a husband of a lady I knew said, "Wow," he says, "this reminds me of my grandmother's lilac bush," because he could smell it, and
Oh,
you could
wow.
just see him go into that state
Mhm.
because there's nothing. There's a couple of things that are closely paired with memory, and
Mhm.
that's taste, flavor, and scent and smell.
Yes.
The companies that make these beautiful perfumes, I mean, you can get the most, like a Joe Malone perfume.
Right.
These things are beautiful. I mean,
Mhm.
or they're candles or whatever. These, these are made by chemists.
Yes.
and they're produced to create a feeling
Mhm.
or to invoke or evoke a memory. And so to see someone go into that, tasting a real tequila, that was fun,
Yeah,
because that's his descriptor now. He owns that. And
right.
that's why I tell people, smooth. Find something else. Bite. It's not a bite. It's called a finish. It's a
Right.
finish. And some tequilas don't have a finish, and that's okay. That's all right.
Hmm.
Some finishes are short. Some will have, the mezcals have that long, warm fuzz.
Yes.
So does a
Yes.
whiskey for that matter. Now,
Yes.
uh, so you live in bourbon country, whiskey country,
I do.
and so I've noticed that part of your bar is also bourbon and whiskey, and that's got to be your
Yes.
husband's influence, right?
Yeah, so the whole, I mean, I love bourbon and whiskey too. I was talking to my mom about this and I said, what did you all drink? I remember growing up like parties and like all the kids, the cousins, myself being one, just kind of being around all the parents that were having fun and dancing and they were drinking. I said, "What did you drink?" And she goes, "We had tequila, whiskey and beer." Cuz my dad loved whiskey. And I have this memory of when I was a little kid, probably like 7 or 8. My dad had kind of a den set up in the garage. And I was out there and I saw like a glass of Coca Cola with ice cubes in it. And he was inside the house or something. And so I was thirsty and I went over and I took a drink and I liked it. It was like
Uh,
whiskey and Coke. I don't know what kind of whiskey, but I liked it. And I was like, that tastes like different Coke, but I liked it. And I told my dad when he came out, I go, "I just had a sip of your Coke." I go, "That tastes so good. What kind, it's different." And he, kind of got mad, but laughed too. Like, "You're not supposed to drink that." But from that point on, he never knew this. But whenever I would go into the garage and I would see it in there, and he wasn't there, I would like take a little sip. So I did like whiskeys, and I think that's why I like reposados and añejos so much. But yes. So when we started the Grow Bar, this was our dining room, and we never used it. And we just thought, let's make it a bar. And we weren't even really like collecting a lot then. I mean, I had some tequilas and he had some bourbons, but then we went like to Kentucky and did like a little part of the bourbon trail
sure.
thing. And
Yeah.
pretty soon we like had all these bourbons and whiskeys, and then we started getting gins and rums. And so yeah, so one whole side is whiskey, one is tequila. There's definitely more tequila than whiskeys and bourbons now. Some rum, some gin. um I think we might have like one or two vodkas, but we're not big vodka people. But yeah, so Tennessee definitely is bourbon country. And one of the things I would do when I was a rep, um, is I would be a little sneaky. I would go into bars, and if there weren't a lot of people in there, and I saw like guys at the bar drinking bourbon, I would ask the bartender if it would be all right if I sampled them on añejo and extra añejo tequila, and they would say sure. I don't think they were really supposed to let me, but they let me. And I would always tell them, "Hey, you guys want to try a new bourbon?" And they'd be like, "Sure." So I'd pour it and they'd taste it and they would be like, "Damn, this is good, girl. Like, what is this? We've never had any bourbon like this. Like, where's it from?" And I'd say, "Well, that's because it's tequila." And they'd be like, "Oh, so, but it is very similar because of the way that it's aged in those barrels. And most tequilas, I believe, are aged in whiskey barrels. That's like the majority of them. I know now they're doing wine, cognac, rum barrels, all different kinds of barrels, sherry casks. But yeah, it's very similar in taste to like the aged tequilas.
I tell my tasters whenever I do a tasting with them, depending on the brand, because
Mm-hmm.
my job when I do a lot of the solicitations for samples,
Mm-hmm.
I do a lot of matchmaking. I figure out which one of the guys, and I'm still waiting for girls to finish the class. I've been
Yes.
Lisa and I have been looking for female catadores
Mm-hmm.
for 8 years, 9 years. We really have, seriously.
I'm working
And
on it. I'm getting there.
no, well, it's a self-paced course. Take your time. But there's another lady, another, um, uh, for lack of a better word, another influencer
Uh-huh.
that has been really good. I'm so impressed with her homework and the way that she's very conscientious. But but she's also
Yeah.
having fun. I mean, she's got a
Yeah.
family. She's going on vacation and whatever, and that's why
Right.
it's a self-paced course. But I I do a lot of matchmaking with these guys. I go, let's see, who's this? This is, if I know enough about the information about where it's coming from,
Mm-hmm.
if had it before, if we've had another brand from that distillery or whatever, then I make sure that, if this one is going to be more bourbon forward, then I got a taster in Ohio. If
Mm-hmm.
if I'm doing more mezcals and sotols, I've got one in Arizona that we're, because some of these things aren't even available in the U.S. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they bring them across the border and then they mail them to us, and which is
Yes.
really neat for us because we get stuff that's not even, uh,
Yes.
and sotol and let's see, sotol and some mezcals are really popular now in Arizona, which, and bacanores for that matter.
Yeah.
So it's been fun, But the reason I do that is because I know that they'll have a baseline for the tasting, especially my whiskey guys. I have one in the UK who's a big whiskey and cigar guy. As a matter of fact, the guy in
Yeah.
Ohio is a big cigar guy too.
Uh-huh.
But I want to touch on that with you and with you in a second. But
Okay.
um, so the reason I do that is because I know that I'm going to learn something from the stuff he's picking out that's more whiskey and bourbon because he understands it. I don't have a knowledge. All I do is agave spirits.
Mm-hmm.
I got my hands full and all that. I don't want to. I mean, my folks were from Central America, so the only booze we had in the house was rum, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't Bacardi. Uh, so um, but so I have a very small knowledge base on that. Probably much more than normal because of the barrels that they're using,
Yeah.
and that sort of thing, and French oak and sherry and all that stuff, and even Scotch barrels.
Right.
But I know that I'll get a better review from the guy who's got more of an experience with the baseline, and then I'll pick something up from him. So
Yeah.
that's how I like doing it. And I think I mentioned to you in one of your homework assignments, you mentioned that one blind tasting you did, but
Yes.
nothing ups your game when you do a blind tasting with a room full of other people. The remote tastings are tough to do,
Mm-hmm.
but when you're in a room full of people and you know that they know what they're doing, your game goes right up. You watch what everybody else is doing, and
Yeah.
some of my best moments as a taster, as a senior taster now, has been watching other people who are famous.
Mm-hmm.
When I did the last time I judged anything in person was it was Spirits of Mexico, and I had brand reps who were famous, sitting across from me, and three catadores who were certified, across from me. And I had Jack
Mm-hmm.
Robatello, who passed away recently. And you had all these senior people who had been around for it. Even Zach from Old Town Tequila was sitting there.
Oh,
I
wow.
know exactly where his palate lies, because
Yeah.
I watched him. I watched how they reacted to the same juices that we were doing. And so nothing ups your game if you can get in on a tasting. As a matter of fact, we have been asked this, I think it's August this year, to be judges for the San Diego Spirits Festival. Uh,
Yeah. I think Lisa talked to us about that.
yeah, we're going to have several of our guys who are based in LA, and myself,
Mm-hmm.
Alex, hopefully Rick, who's in San Diego, believe it or not. And so it'll be the biggest contingent of us under one roof at the same time.
Oh, that's amazing.
And because a lot of it, what we've done has been remote.
Mm-hmm.
But I know Rick. I mean, the last time I saw Rick, we drank through his library. Um, Rick is Lisa's brother, and
Oh, okay.
if you know who Rick Levy is, he's one of our tasters in San Diego, and so, but it'll be nice because I did some tastings with Alex at his home right before we were doing the last of the 2021 Brands of Promise,
Mm-hmm.
and I missed that because it was so much fun to do it together. You try not to influence each other, but you pick stuff out. And we told Liz Edwards that I only wanted to do tequila. I know
Mm-hmm.
Alex does a lot of cocktails because that's
Mm-hmm.
his side gig. He likes doing cocktails, and maybe you do too.
Yeah.
So that might be, if you're interested and you want to make a trip to San Diego, let Lisa know because
Yeah.
the with all of us in our social media, we can really rock that whole thing.
Yeah.
Uh, but I'm looking forward to it because it's going to be hopefully by then we'll have like our fourth or fifth booster. I don't know. It'll
That'd
be
be great. Now,
it,
did you go? Did you do the LA Tequila Fest?
I didn't for other reasons.
Okay.
Just
Yeah.
I personally I didn't think it was safe enough to do that. In
Yeah.
fact, I know that the San Diego Spirits Festival took place last year, and I still thought that was August was too early. And
Mm-hmm.
it turned out we were, I guess in hindsight we were right. But I
Mm-hmm.
I feel this year will be a little safer, a little bit
Yeah.
better.
I think.
And I'm looking forward to it because I really miss, this business is a face-to-face business,
Oh
and
yeah.
I said the same thing to Jill Otten when I interviewed her. Then, this is very much a person-to-person business,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it was fun to talk with her and talk with you because I got two different perspectives from somebody who's been doing this a little bit longer than maybe
Mm-hmm.
the younger tasters.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Cigars.
Yes.
Are you naturally attracted to cigars? Is that something you picked up with your husband?
Well, I'm a hairdresser. And so in Nashville, I had a client who worked for a big cigar company, CAO. And
Oh,
he,
okay.
he did like all of their marketing. And at one point, CAO, I think they got bought by somebody and they moved their headquarters out of state to Virginia or somewhere. And so a lot of the people didn't want to go. So my friend, John Huber, and another one of the guys there, Mike Conder, started Crowned Head Cigars.
Hmm.
So when I first started doing John's hair, he would just I told him that my sister, the one that makes wine in Napa, and her husband loved cigars. And so like the next day he sent them all these cigars. He asked it for
Wow.
their address. He's an awesome guy. Awesome guy. And so then he started bringing me cigars. And then he and Mike left CAO and started Crowned Heads. And so then he started giving me the Crowned Heads. And then my husband and I just started smoking those and enjoyed them. So I don't know as much about cigars as my husband does. He's been smoking them for like 20 years or over 20 years. But I just, he'll hand me something and I'll either like it or I won't. But I will say that there aren't any crown heads that I don't like. I haven't had one I don't like yet. And I like Drew Estate. I like some of their cigars too.
I love those
And
guys.
and of course, because I have the sweet tooth, I sometimes I like, the Java flavored or whatever. I like those. So,
I like their blondies. Those are my
oh
favorite.
yeah,
They're short little, like they're infused with incense, and it's just they smell lovely.
yeah.
Um, so I know we've gone a little bit over an hour, but I wanted to ask you. It's like that time flies with you. I mean,
I
it's like
thank
this
you. Well,
this is fun.
I'm a hairdresser. I like to talk.
Okay, so here's a question for you. Do you cut your own hair?
Sometimes I do trim it and color it myself, but if it's the back, I have to have my husband do that for me. Usually I have a girlfriend, she's a hairstylist too, and we do each other's. But, during COVID, I kind of had to learn how to fend for myself.
What? So do you cut your husband's hair?
I do.
Do you trim his beard?
No, he won't let me trim his beard. He's like, I'll trim my own beard. I'm like, okay. So
Oh.
sometimes if I see like a little hair sticking out or something, I'll trim it. So
Now, you said you're a hairdresser, so did you work exclusively in women's salons, or do you do men and women?
I do men and women. When I first moved to Nashville, I was, just trying to build a clientele. So I ended up doing a lot of like video, like stuff for music videos or like low budget movies or whatever I could just to meet people and work with different photographers and film people. And then I built my clientele. And I really didn't enjoy the film stuff because it was a lot of, it paid really well, but it wasn't creative. Like I ended up just standing around a lot all day because I would do hair and makeup.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, so I prefer just like working in my own space. So I had a studio with four girls, and then it changed. Two of them moved, so then it was just another girl and I for the last 10 years. And then when COVID happened, our building sold. So then I moved right around the corner. I got lucky; I didn't have to move far. And I just rent like a space in a building with other stylists. So we
Okay.
each have our own space. Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh, let's see, what else did I want? Okay. So now that you've been around the tequila industry for a while now,
Hmm.
uh, you want to name some of your favorites?
I have so many favorites. I love probably one of the first ones that I enjoyed was I think Fuente Seca was one of the first ones. Besides anything Meli Barajas produced, like that was one of the first ones. I love like Siete Leguas as a go-to. I'm a big fan of anything Meli makes. I really enjoy Lisa Elovich's One with Life. I love,
She just had her her product placement that I watched
yes,
the movie last night, and she was wow, that must have been a shock for her to have that product placement. That was really cool.
it was. She didn't even really know it was going to happen, she said. But I love the Blanco. I love the Extra Añejo. I'm a huge fan of Tears and Rey Sol. If Rey Sol wasn't so expensive, I would buy it a lot more often. So I just like do little pours of it, but I do
Yeah.
drink it a lot. So yeah, and I love like El Tiqueleño. I just tried Wild Common for the first time. Cabal. I'm a
Of
new fan of
course.
Cabal. I
That's
love their tequila. So there's so many. It's so hard to pick one. The Joven that Cascanes makes,
I hear that's very good. Yep.
so good. I highly recommend it. So there's a lot of good ones. It's almost like every day I might have a new favorite tequila because it just depends on my mood.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, let's see. Are you if let's say I would come into your salon and you looked at my hair and you said, what would you recommend that I do with my hair? Because I'm looking for a new look. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'm ready to go all Jason Statham, but I don't
Yeah.
because I barely have time to put my face in front of a razor. So it's like
Well, just knowing your lifestyle and what you do for a living, I think because you have long hair, right? It's back in a
well,
ponytail.
yeah, it's in a ponytail. What's left of it? Yeah.
Yeah, like that's your lifestyle. It's easy. You don't have to mess with it. You can put it back in a ponytail. But I would also say that when it's in a ponytail, like when I'm looking at you right now,
Yeah.
I don't really know the ponytails back there. So what's the point of having
Oh, good question. Wow.
it?
Well,
So
maybe if I turn sideways and grab a
yeah.
bump, I
And
don't.
so I would
It's
say
really damaged in the back anyway. You don't want to see
I
that.
you know what I would say, just because nothing is permanent, nothing is forever. I'm all about like trying new things, like trying new tequilas. So I probably would say, if you're up for it, you've got a really nice face and bone structure. You really don't need the ponytail back there. So I would just cut it and make it short in the back.
Oh.
Have it for a while. If you don't like it, let it grow and it'll grow back healthier, because once your hair is long and it's been there for a while, it just continues to get damaged. So
Yeah.
like get rid of it and then just let it grow back.
I
That's the
tell
great
people
thing
it's a,
about hair.
I tell people it's a clip-on. Yeah, well, not my hair. It won't grow back. It's all gone. What else am I want to ask you something else. Uh, if okay, if you had one thing to tell people before we sign
Mhm.
off about tequila, what would you say to them? What would you advise somebody who wants to know what the buzz is all about? Is coming from another direction.
I would tell them like tequila, to me, tequila, why it's the spirit that I prefer is just because there's a lot of tradition behind it. There is a lot of history behind it that I really, really like. So I would probably tell somebody to read up on that. I would tell somebody it has a lot of health benefits. It's one of the healthier spirits if you are going to consume spirits in moderation. And there's a lot of players behind it. You know, you have like the farmers, the jimadores that harvest it, the people that cook it, the people that make the bottles. There's a lot of work that goes into some of these bottles. They're works of art. And to me, like the juice is art. I always say like it's like symphony in a bottle. And there's like a lot of players that are in that bottle representing like what you're drinking. So I would just tell people to like research the history of tequila and where it comes from. And I would also tell them just, you know, drink more tequila, like drink as many different tequilas as you can so you learn to understand what you like. That would be my advice to somebody.
Okay. I,
Mm-hmm.
let me ask you one last question, and this is more from my research because I'm about ready to embark on on another book. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
when you taste a tequila, let's see if you can refer back to when you were doing these blind, and you had
Mm-hmm.
no idea
Mm-hmm.
which brand was what.
Mm-hmm.
Can you feel? Is there a feeling other than the scent and the smell and the look? Is there an
Mm-hmm.
additional feeling that you feel inside when you taste a tequila you approve of?
Yeah, it's like it's almost like an endorphin, like sort of like a tingling, like wow, like your taste buds, you know, it just yeah, it definitely is just like a really good feeling. And I think that's what happens like when you were talking about perfumes,
Hmm.
when you take a tequila and you swirl it around and you smell it, that smell either makes you feel good or it makes you not feel good. And when it's good, it's just like this tingly, good feeling. That's the best way I could explain it, you
So
know?
did you, when you were doing those blind tastings, did you have any of those feelings?
Yes. There were some that like I smelled and it's just like it wasn't appealing. And so I would maybe just feel like that doesn't make me happy. It's
Okay.
like the opposite of
Okay.
happy, you know. It doesn't yeah, and then there were others that it was just like wow, like my senses and everything were just like, wow, boom, you know? So definitely, I think that has a lot to do with it. But,
Okay.
you know, not knowing what they were it was a very difficult task
Yeah.
because there was no hype behind anything.
No. Yeah. No bottle, nothing to look at. You know,
No.
no form of reference.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
well, you know, Heidi, we could go on for another couple hours,
We,
but well, you
we
know what?
could.
Why don't we save this? First of all, again, repeat your Instagram is called.
La Tequila Mamacita.
Okay, you can find her
Mhm.
on Instagram,
And
and
Facebook.
you yeah on Facebook,
Uh-huh.
and you're also part of the Techie Ladies, right?
Yeah. And
And,
that's just at the Techie Ladies. So TEQUI Ladies.
okay, all right,
Mm-hmm.
and those are the you and your other cohorts, co-hosts.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Um, and we hope to have the other two on our open bar. I want to thank you for being with us in open bar. I'm Mike Morales here in Southern California. If you're watching and listening to us, if you're watching on Insta, well, I don't know if on Instagram, but yeah, on YouTube, hit the notification bell, subscribe, give us a like because it helps us on the algorithm. We have been talking and having a good time listening to Heidi Anderson, who is the Tequila Mamacita. And thanks for being here because you're gonna be back here shortly. We're gonna
Oh, thank
get
you
off.
for having me. I'm just so glad that I finally got to talk to you face to face after
Oh yeah.
all of these years. So thank you.
Well, thank you for being one of our avid readers. So,
You're
um,
welcome.
but anyway, yeah, and say hi to your husband for us.
I will.
That's our take on open bar. But stick with us because we'll have plenty of these interviews coming up shortly, all throughout 2022, and hopefully we'll see you guys out in person. You know, the public who's watching us and you and me. You know, sometime this year, maybe who knows, maybe August. We'll see.
We'll
But
see.
thanks again.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
thanks again for watching Open Bar, for being here with us, and we will talk with you soon.
Salud.